One of the most haunting things is that if Nip wasn't outside trying to help his community, he would probably still be here today. Nipsey Hussle grew up in South Central LA where he reps Crenshaw hard. He dropped out of high school and became affiliated with the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips, one of the largest gangs in the city. As an artist, Nip distinguished himself by his value of independence and ownership above everything else. Part of what made Nip such an icon in hip-hop was his super strategic attitude about business, founding his own record label, All Money In, launching his own clothing brand, and most famously, making sure he kept all of his masters. Nip was so confident about the quality of his music that he only made 1,000 copies of his tape Crenshaw and revealed he was selling them for $100 a pop. And the confidence paid off because Jay-Z personally bought 100 and he sold out in 24 hours. Can't complain. At the same time, Nip was renowned for staying loyal to his community. He was more than just a rapper, he was a true activist. Nip invested heavily into revitalizing Crenshaw. He opened up his flagship store, the Marathon Clothing, in the neighborhood and even bought the shopping center where it was located. He was an early investor in a local co-working space meant to provide opportunities to young minority entrepreneurs on the come up. Nip was a philanthropist, a leader, and a businessman all at the same time, and the community loved him for it. He was a dude hopping on the scene with a Malcolm X chain on, just a complete different individual from the jump. In 2018, after a decade of non-stop work, things were really starting to come together for Nipsey. Debut album Victory Lap was about to drop and it was loaded with high-profile features. He was finally starting to capture some mainstream appeal after years of being an MVP in the trenches. You could even argue that Nip was a legitimate contender for being the next king of LA, but all of that came to an end on March 31st, 2019. Nipsey had just pulled up to a store to link up with a friend who just got released from prison. He wanted to make sure his mans came back clean. That's just the type of dude he was. So, he brought him to the store. While he was there, he crossed paths with a man named Eric Holder, another 60s Crip who was grabbing food nearby. Nip and Holder had a conversation where Nip spoke on rumors that Holder was a snitch and asked Holder to bring his paperwork together. The conversation was chill and in passing. Nip probably didn't even think anything of it at the time, but it definitely rubbed Holder the wrong way, and he left feeling very disrespected. Minutes later, Holder walked back to the parking lot with 2 guns and started to open fire. Nipsey was shot at least 10 times, and it's recorded that his last words were, "He shot me." When Nip hit the ground, Eric Holder actually ran over, kicked him in the head, then took off, jumped into a car with a random woman and forced her to drive off. Nip was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Nipsey Hussle's murder sent shockwaves throughout not just LA, but the entire world. A lot of the community OGs jumped to action to make sure that Nip's death didn't lead to violent reprisals on the street. There were memorials and visuals in damn near every city in America. The president of Iran even sent out a tweet to pay tribute to Nip. Not only was everyone stunned by just how senseless and random Nip's death was, but hip-hop was legitimately mourning, losing one of the greatest and most consistent leaders in our generation. Nipsey's funeral was held at the Staples Center. The only person before Nip to have a funeral at the Staples Center was Michael Jackson. So that just goes to show you the impact that this man had, especially in LA. Not to mention that the 20-mile plus funeral procession had thousands of fans gathered on the streets for hours. 2 days after Nip was killed, Eric Holder was arrested by LAPD. There's still a lot of conspiracy theories circulating about the motivations behind Nip's murder. It was revealed that the LAPD constantly kept the Marathon Clothing store and Nip under surveillance. Nipsey consistently spoke about police brutality in his music and interviews, and the LAPD responded by labeling him a gang leader. Given how notoriously corrupt LA cops are, it's no surprise that there's rumors that the cops played a role in Nip's assassination. Nothing's been proven, but there's enough shadiness to at least make people wonder. Especially because Nip had an organized sit-down with the LAPD to take place on April 1st, which would have been the day after his death. The culture and his community definitely felt Nip's death, but no one felt it more than his own family. Nip had 2 children, including a son with actress Lauren London, who he had been with for nearly 6 years. Between ATL and the game, Lauren is beloved as California royalty, and her bond with Nipsey only cemented that further. When Nip died, Lauren committed to upholding his legacy, speaking at his funeral to tell the world the marathon continues. That didn't keep Kodak Black from shooting his shot. As soon as the news came out that Nipsey was killed, Kodak hopped on social media and started saying that he would give Lauren a year before swooping her up. To no surprise, countless artists from the game to T.I. gave Kodak some words. LA radio stations even boycotted him. Kodak quickly had to turn around and apologize, but the damage at this point was already done, and it just shows how much people loved and respected this man. So once again, hip-hop lost one of its greatest leaders while he was in the prime of his career. People not only grieve the loss, but the loss of what could have been. R.I.P. Nipsey Hussle. Although he's not here, his music, his example, and his contributions will live forever.